Okay, cool. So I just recorded this thing and there was no audio, so I have to do this again, which is really exciting. It just makes my day. So I just released a product on Gumroad. It's called Really Volume 1.0. Why the heck would you want to grab this? Okay, cool. I'm gonna show you quickly, right? It's a volume shader for Blender, made for Blender. It just has a lot more control. You can do a lot more than the regular volume shader. So this is it and what it looks like. So this is what we're used to. So this is why I made this, okay? Because I do this quite often for my scene, so I'm just gonna plug in the principal volume. And I did change some numbers, so when you plug it in, right, like this is at 1, everything's at default. As you can see, it's quite intense. And if you want to turn it down, it's kind of impossible. It's just like, what the heck, man? So we usually default to like 0.1. Set your volume to 0.1 or set it to 0.01. Why 0.1 or 0.0? Nobody knows. Okay, I mean, it's like default. It's like, okay, cool. That's all you can do, and it's a drop beat. Let me rework this a little bit. So then I made Really Volume 1.0. So as you can see, density. Okay, you could really crank this. You could crank it. Okay, don't be shy. Don't be shy about it. You can crank it. And we've got distance and we've got fall off, right? Fall off pretty much speaks for itself. Basically, we have volume close to the camera and we have volume all the way throughout the distance. However big your volumetric cube or whatever object you're using is. So it's covering the whole spectrum or the whole dimension or whatever you want to call it. So volume distance will literally cut off the volume that's closest to the camera. And based on the number, that's basically the distance where you start to see it and not. As you can see, if I do it really quickly, you can see what it's doing. So now we have volume on the sphere. So if I set it to 0, we got volume everywhere, right? In fact, if I lower the fall off, you'll see this even better. So I'll be like 25 or something. So we got a lot of volume, and maybe that's not what you want, because I guess realistically in real life, it gets foggier furthest away from the camera. So usually the things that are really close you can't see. I guess it depends what kind of day it is. You do get those really foggy days where it's almost hard to see anything in front of you. But still, the more you walk, the more stuff you see, right? And this is kind of how this responds. If I cut this off now we don't have volume closer to the camera, but we have it further away. And let me just cut this off because we also have mist. Now the difference between volume and mist, volume reacts to light, and then mist is irrespective of the visible light in the scene. So you could use this if you want to create like an overcast, misty day, foggy day, or whatever the heck, then you want to use the mist and not the volumetrics or the volume. And the volume, if you have lights or emissive objects that you want to react to the volume, that's when you use the volume density. But you can also combine them for whatever reason, right? So it really gives you a lot of control in terms of the look and feel that you want to do for your scene. You could even maybe let's just sample this ground color here, so then you can crank up the density. Let's turn down the volumetrics. Right now we just have the mist. You can crank up the density, or just have it very subtle if you just want like this feeling of just dust particles in the air. And obviously you've got the fall off, and then you've got the distance. Now the inspiration behind this came from the mist pause. As you can see, it works exactly the same. So the start is the mist distance, the depth is the mist fall off, and these work exactly the same. So volume distance, mist distance, exactly the same thing. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you. So let's look at this image. So we'll try to recreate that using just the mist pause, right? So it's 5 and 25. So the distance is 5 and fall off 25. Obviously you're not going to see anything, but if we switch back to combined, maybe let's change this to a different color so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Maybe like brighten it up and crank up the density. Now, if you look carefully, maybe let's make this a little less. If you look carefully, if you switch back to the mist pause, as you can see, it pretty much overlaps, and the mist is actually the perfect way to illustrate this, because if I set this to like 0, now we have mist throughout the entire scene. If I set this to 5, then 5 meters from the camera you won't get any mist, right? And the depth, again, exactly what it says. The lower the number, the less depth there is. So in other words, the more compressed or the more contrasty the volume is. But if I crank this up to a high number, then we have a very smooth fall off. So then you can actually see, you know, the distant mountains. You can actually see the different planes. So this is more the foreground, the midground, and that's the background, right? And it basically gives it more depth. So if we wanted to match this exact look, we just have to punch in the exact numbers here. So this is like 100. And now as you can see, this is the foreground, this is the midground, and there's the background. So obviously it's a bit too bright for you to actually see. So maybe if I turn this into a color that really stands out, then you can actually see what it's doing. So if I bring this back to 0, now we have volume throughout. The only reason you're not seeing it here is because of the large fall off, right? So if I turn this down quite a bit, then you're going to start getting volume in the immediate foreground. Now another thing to really emphasize here, so with the distance and the fall off, right? The fall off always needs to be higher than the distance, otherwise it kind of inverts the effect. So this should always be at least 1, and then you can crank it up however you want, but this number should always be, the distance should always be lower than the fall off for it to work properly. And I can show you now, if you don't do that, then it's kind of flipped. And I mean, I guess you could use that for something, I don't know, maybe it's useful for something, but I guess it just looks weird. So always make sure the fall off is much higher than the distance, because it's first the fall off determining, you know, how wide or how smooth you want it, and then this sort of cuts off the volume from a certain distance, as you can see over here. Alright, and yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. It's very, very simple, very standard. And obviously you have your absorption color that usually works for the volume, for the volumetrics. And what that really does is, let's just switch this off. It basically changes. So if you crank up the density, you'll see that it will get brighter. Let's just reset this as well. So it gets brighter, but it also gets darker, because it's like the volume is creating sort of a shadow, if you will. But you can control the color of the shadow. I always call that, I don't know if it's actually a shadow. As a note, always avoid like pure white or pure black whenever you're working with 3D, or just in general, like whenever you're working with media, because we don't really get those kind of values in real life. Like there's always some kind of information or detail. In terms of values, like you don't ever want to do pure white. Like if you want to do a white ball or something, make sure it's just off white, because as you can see, if it's pure white, like, you know, you just don't get the information that you're looking for. As soon as I turn this down, that's when you start seeing that color come through. Then you can actually change that to get, yeah, just some weird trippy effects, because this could be one color and the other one could be another color, you know. And then you can see there's this kind of like gradient or gradation of colors, which could be interesting if you're doing something very stylized and trippy. So yeah, so just check it out, Really Volume 1.0. I guess officially it's my first real product that I put out there, and I'm really, really proud of it. It's not something I've seen a lot of, which is another thing that I'm really proud of. Like, oh damn, how the hell did you manage that? I have no idea. But yeah, if you really like this, you know, check it out. It's on Gumroad right now. I'm gonna include the link in the description so you can have a look at it. And if you really like it, just give me the feedback. Let me know what you like about it, and if there's anything that I can improve on. But I think for me personally, it is an improvement on the regular principal volume shader, because it just offers you a lot more control, and the numbers are not so astronomical. Like you can really dial in the look that you're looking for. So that's that. And also, I have to mention this, I'm working on another product that should be coming through sometime this week or next week. another one that I'm really excited about and I'm really proud of. Yeah, strictly for Blender. Yeah, so that should be coming through soon. So if you wanna stay in tuned, or if you wanna be notified when that comes out, just yeah, subscribe to the channel, and then when it comes out you should be notified, and yeah, you can grab it for yourself and just start playing around. Okay, just start having fun with this stuff. I mean, that's why I made it, so you could have fun with it, right? Really Volume 1.0, check it out, grab it right now and go start playing around and create something. Okay, all right, I'll see you on the next one.